So, welcome back, y'all, to the Healing Room, where tonight's topic of conversation is conquering fear. And after thinking about it, I decided to change that to transcending fear because conquering is too adversarial for me. So I like this word transcending or overcoming fear, which is a very important topic because in the background of much of our lives, there is fear running. There may be fear running, but chances are there is because we're in this world of illusion, which creates duality. And the ego personality lives in this space of duality. And from duality comes me versus the external, me versus the world, me versus the other. And so in this duality, we are conditioned from very early on to live in fear and worry and anxiety that something from the external world is going to get us, whether it's a germ, disease, a terrorist, um, who knows? A wild animal, something in nature, the boogeyman. There's always something that can potentially come to us that we have no control over. And this generates fear. And so we are conditioned through education, right? So when we're younger, we have to wake up at a certain time, get ourselves to school. We got to take all these tests. We have to do well. I hope people like me. I hope I pass this test and I don't fail. So from very early on, there is this conditioning in the educational system about achieving and success. And whenever there is something like success, there's always its opposite. So in duality, wherever there is a positive, we create its negative, or wherever we perceive a negative, we naturally create its positive. So we're constantly moving between these two extremes. And the goal is to be the witness, to stand in the center and observe these two extremes and go to neither of them. So the key to working with fear is simply to notice. I am noticing I am worrying. I am noticing I am anxious. And then to observe, is this actually right here, right now? Am I really experiencing this now? Or is it a past thought or concern about the future? Because in the present moment, there's nothing to fear. Everything's perfect right here, right now. However, if you're in the moment and say you're in a street crossing the street and a car is coming at you and you jump out of fear, that is a normal reaction. That's a biological fear. That's different than what we're talking about. We want the access to that level of fear. But this underlying constant fear of something happening in life, right? The doctors say, oh, you need to get a shot so you don't get all these different diseases. I mean, how many? How many? There's infinite number of viruses and bacteria out there. How many more do I need? So they keep us continuously in this state of fear and othering, right? External something going to come to me rather than the realization the universe is here. Everything is right here. Every germ, bacteria, virus, whatever you want to call it, exists right here. I am everything. Therefore, I have nothing to fear outside of me. I have trust. I have acceptance. I have courage. But one has to notice what's arising And then rather than letting the fear run the mind or the system or the body, we observe the fear and let it be. So I have this continual, since I can remember, a fear of thresholds, like going from one place to another place, one driveway to another driveway, like across the street, like a car is going to come and get me, or going under a bridge when there's a truck going by. I always have a fear that this truck is going to fall on my car. It makes no rational sense. And chances are it's not from this lifetime, but a memory. And it's a physiological memory because I feel it in my body. So I notice it every time I'm going to go under an overpass and I see a truck. I prepare myself and I said, it's okay. We're in this moment in time. We're not in the past. And this is not going to happen to us in this lifetime. So each time the fear diminishes until there is no more fear. I used to have a fear of police. Made no sense whatsoever. My heartbeat would race. I'd start sweating until over time, I just chose not to react to it at all, to just be with it, let the fear course through my body, let it run its course, let it run through the nervous system, right? The fight or flight response, and then shake it off. We're done. We don't have to keep running this fear. So awareness is what allows us to be with, first of all, to notice I am in a fear state. I'm in a fight or flight response. And then to step back, bring awareness to it through the witness, and then let it simply be. Breathe into the fear, the concern, the worry. Because each time we do that, we're moving out of the limited mind, which is harboring all of these fears. And it's the ego personality that is feeding off of that mind and all of these thoughts. So when we step back, when we drop into the heart, the witness, and be with whatever it is, we transmute it. And then more and more the ego surrenders and the mind surrenders until we're not living in fear anymore, but we're living in a space of the present moment. This present moment. That's all there is. And so it's a training. It's an unlearning process to release all of the conditioning that we have ingested, that we have made a part of our lives. We have to protect ourselves from a certain nationality, from a certain religion, from a certain type of this or that. All these things are learned. So we have to unlearn, forget it, let it go, surrender until the mind gets to a place of emptiness. So whenever the mind goes to judgment, which comes from fear, we let the mind know we don't judge anymore. We accept people exactly as they are. And then it comes back with its excuses and its reason. And you still say, we accept people exactly as they are. So we are overriding all the aspects of fear, which are shame, guilt, blame, judgment, resentment, anger, selfishness, and on it goes. There are many facets of fear. And so we choose in each moment to dissolve it, to not feed it, first of all, and then to let it go and to drop into the heart and accept. Accept that we're all connected. We're all connected. Well, what if this person harms me? You accept it for what it is. Because nothing can happen to us that isn't a part of our journey. It doesn't mean one doesn't defend oneself in certain situations. Absolutely. But in the case of seeing someone and then having a reaction, and that reaction is a judgment, that's what I'm talking about, pulling back the story. from the story you've been told or telling yourself and stepping into the heart space of acceptance rather than rejection or judgment or whatever else may arise. There's I'm going to read a paragraph from my current book that I'm writing, which is called The Voice Within. For the ego personality, fear is the primary motivating force, giving rise to various reactive emotional states such as guilt, shame, blame, anger, resentment, impatience, intolerance, judgment, selfishness, worry, anxiety, superiority, inferiority, hopelessness, doubt, uncertainty, and others. Fear leads to the emergence of the human doing, who operates in survival mode, driven by the need to achieve, perform, compete, compare, perfect, and satisfy the many ego-based desires. Human doing, always busy, always having to be out there, distracted, right? That is a facet of fear. I have to achieve, I have to accomplish, I have to prove myself to the world. None of that is real. That's all conditioning. We get to be ourselves in this moment, and we are enough just by being here now. We don't have to be anything other than this. And then the mind will say, but then we look like a failure if we don't do this or if we don't do that. To who? That's creating the otherness out there. That's creating the split in consciousness. But the reality is, we come from a unified field of oneness, unity consciousness. So we're in this world to transcend this world. That's the point of being here, to go from duality back to unity, from mind to heart. That's the spiritual journey. And we forget about it because we go into survival mode. We're in the fight or flight response. And so we have to come back into the parasympathetic nervous system, the present moment, not the past future, which is fight or flight. And it takes effort to stay present and not in the past future loop. When living from fear, the source of guidance is the agenda set forth by the status quo, a bias which operates from established norms, comfort of familiarity, routines and habits, resistance to change, cognitive dissonance. Fear arises due to the identification with this material world and the potential for loss, whether in the form of health, assets, social status, or power. The fear of loss. The ultimate fear is the fear of death. We can notice that underlying many of our fear-based ideologies is the fear of death. And that's one that needs to be for sure transcended, because if there's a fear of death, we're not really fully alive or living. Because we're all going to die, right? We're all going to leave this world. But the true death is dying to our limited mind. That's what's really here to die. And that's what's really afraid to die. Because the more we transcend our fear, the more the mind dissolves. The mind is let go of. And then the ego personality becomes a real ego, holding, containing, connecting to the soul. So it's this dissolution of the mind that is so based in fear, in what's going to happen, in othering, right? It's all based in the mind. So if you drop into the heart, the mind doesn't know what to do with that. So it's like if you can imagine the heart holding the mind, like a mother holding a child saying, it's all going to be okay. No matter what it is, it's all going to be okay because it is what it is anyway. So why worry? Why be anxious? Why be fearful? We're going to deal with it as we go to deal with it. It's just the way it is. So I'd love to bring in an allegory, which is the story of Adam and Eve, because it really pertains to this subject matter. And so there is this story in the Bible. I don't have any religious, belief or anything, but I did go to Catholic school for 12 years. So I have a lot of Christian-based stories and connections. And so I like to bring in allegories at times, but it doesn't matter what book it comes from. There's truth in all of these religions and all of these books. So this one comes from the Bible and the story of Adam and Eve, where God created this garden, this beautiful garden of Eden. And he created man and then created woman to be his companion and said, y'all can eat from any tree, the fruit of any tree in this garden, whatever you want, except for the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Because if you eat from that tree, you are going to die. And so they're like, okay. And so they're living in this Eden, this paradise for this period of time until one day this serpent shows up and says to Eve, why don't you eat from this tree, right? Temptation. Why don't you eat from this one? God said not to eat from this tree because we can die if we do. Oh, don't believe that nonsense. You're not going to die. Taste it. It looks delicious. So, of course, as the story goes, Eve takes a bite of the apple and says, yeah, it is delicious. And then says to Adam, here, try this. No resistance from Adam. He's like, all right. So he takes a taste of the apple and their eyes open up. They now see good and evil. And so one day God comes to the garden and says, where are you? And they say, we ate of the tree of good and evil, and we are frightened because we are naked. Actually, they didn't say they ate. They said, we're frightened, we're hiding because we're naked. And God said, who told you you were naked? We ate the fruit of the tree of good and evil. I told you not to eat it. So what happened? So here are these characters in a paradise, not probably conscious that they're in paradise, it's just life. So they're unconscious. And so as the story goes, they choose to eat the apple, which is going to open their eyes to the illusion, duality, good and evil. So God says, since you disobeyed me, you are now cast out of the garden, and now you'll have to toil and suffer. And to make sure you can't get back in, I'm going to protect the entrance, have cherubim with fire protecting the entrance. So now Adam and Eve are cast out of the garden and have to work hard, toil the earth, suffer, be in pain. So there's no mistakes here. It's just sharing how this all began. Unconscious God wanting to know itself consciously. So he created a game of duality and split himself off in many pieces called souls and sent those souls into the world of form. into Maya, into illusion, into duality. And then from duality, find your way back to the garden, to paradise, what I call the new paradigm. But to get back into the garden, you're going to have to cross the angels of fire. What is fire? Transformation. You're going to have to transform the perception, misperception of illusion, of duality, into unity consciousness. You're going to have to die to your false, egoic, limited mind self in order to become oneness again, back with unity consciousness, back with God. And so that's essentially what we're doing. We are remembering that we are souls with the veils over our eyes. They may be open, but they're open to duality. So we have to come back to the single eye so we can pierce the veil of duality and remember the path home. That path is by facing all the things we perceive as other. Everything we experience as fear, and return to the place of nakedness, right? Adam and Eve were naked originally, but then they ate the fruit and they felt ashamed. They hid themselves because they were naked. They were transparent. They felt seen. They were afraid of being judged. So now we have to go back to that place of transparency, of nakedness. Who's naked when they're born? Children. Be like children in order to enter the kingdom of God. So we are unlearning all the conditioning we were given as children and beyond, returning to that place of innocence, curiosity, wonder, openness, acceptance. This is the journey home, from fear to love, from separation to unity, from judgment to acceptance. This is the journey. This is the challenge that we are faced with, because it feels so real, the separation here. It feels so real, the fear. All of it feels so real. So we have to transform that reality through our own presence. That's our job. That's our work. And it's the hardest work. To love what you don't want to love, to forgive who you don't want to forgive, to allow people to be who they are. Democrats, Republicans, presidents, whoever it is, let them be without any peanut gallery in the background having opinions about it. What do I know about anything anyway? They're fulfilling their soul's journey. They're living their karmic path. So it's up to me to let go of all the projections into the world of duality and to stand in the middle as the witness, allowing everything to be exactly what it is and allowing the open heart to transform it. Because once you get to that place, it becomes a whole new ball game. And I've shared some of that with you in the healing room, but when you are sitting in the authority of life, life transforms around you. The oceans part because you're the commander. She who lives from the heart commands this reality. So there will be no authority externally. Right now, there are so many authorities: doctors, the government, clergy, teachers, on and on it goes. Everyone's our authority telling us how to live in this world. Ultimately, we want to claim all that power back. I'm the authority. I am the source of all of it. And as we work with dissolving the limited mind's beliefs and conditioning, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. Because that is the place that I live in. And from that place, I simply create reality. There's nothing to fight because there's no outside. There's no outside. It's all a mirror of what's inside of me. So if I want to see a difference in the world, I simply observe it. I watch. I don't try to fight it. I don't try to change it. I simply observe it in its perfect state, in its whole state. And the observer is the transformer. If you fight something, which the ego personality wants to do, you're giving energy to that which you're fighting. That which you're resisting gets all the energy. If you don't want to see something in this world, pull back your attention and your focus. Pull back your consciousness from that thing. Watch what happens. Watch what happens when many of us do that. Just pull back the energy and be curious about it. I like to say things that there is peace on earth rather than fighting war or going against war. No, I'm not going to go against anything. I'm going to maintain peace and I'm going to be peace because whatever I am being, I will perpetuate in this world. So let's conclude with a few quotes. Too many of us are not living our dreams because we are living our fears. Les Brown. This is Nelson Mandela. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. Don't give in to your fears. If you do, you won't be able to talk to your heart. I love that. That's Paulo Coelho. Most people do not really want freedom because freedom involves responsibility, and most people are frightened of responsibility. Sigmund Freud. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. Joseph Campbell. Always do what you're afraid to do. E. Lockhart. He who has overcome his fears will truly be free. Aristotle. He is terribly afraid of dying because he hasn't yet lived. Franz Kafka. Courage is feeling fear, not getting rid of it, and taking action in the face of fear. Roy T. Bennett. These are a few quotes from Rumi. Why do you stay in prison when the door is so wide open? Forget safety. Live where you fear to live. Start a huge, foolish project like Noah. It makes absolutely no difference what people think of you. I died as a mineral and became a plant. I died as a plant and rose to animal. I died as an animal and I was a man. Why should I fear? When was I less by dying? Move, but don't move in the way fear makes you move. This one's Hafez. Fear is the cheapest room in the house. I would like to see you living in better conditions. And lastly, internal and external are ultimately one. When you no longer perceive the world as hostile, there is no more fear. And when there is no more fear, you think, speak, and act differently. Love and compassion arise, and they affect the world. Eckhart Tolle.